pair of handsome brothers from a wealthy family secretly plotted to murder their own parents in order to claim their father's multi-million-dollar inheritance sooner, shocking the entire nation. During the trial, the brothers kept lying again and again. They even fabricated a story that their father had assaulted his own sons, creating an unprecedented deadlock among the jurors. Were these brothers acting out of fear and rebellion, or was it simply the result of greed? Today, let's take a closer look at this highly controversial case. The story begins on August 20th, 1989. In an elite neighborhood of Los Angeles, a wealthy couple was brutally gunned down in what appeared to be a mob-style hit. Their two sons lost both parents overnight. At the funeral, the elder brother, Lyall, suddenly burst into laughter while speaking about inheriting the estate. Police investigated for 2 months but failed to identify any suspects, and everything about this case felt deeply unsettling. The brothers continued living in the mansion, but the younger one, Erik, was constantly haunted by nightmares. Out of desperation, he decided to seek help from a psychologist named Lyall. When he arrived, Erik confessed that he had been having suicidal thoughts. However, before recounting what had happened, Erik cautiously looked around, afraid that surveillance devices might expose his secret. Even after Lyall assured him the office was completely safe, Erik still seemed uneasy. To be extra cautious, he suggested they talk while walking. In recent weeks, Erik had been dreaming about returning to the crime scene and shooting himself, the memory playing vividly in his mind like a movie reel.
And I'm standing there, and my mom gets shot in the stomach, and then the leg, because her knee practically exploded, right?
Yeah.
And she keeps getting shot, but she won't die. And my dad's face gets blown off like again and again and again, and his face is just gone, and there's smoke everywhere.
And this is every night, this dream?
Yeah, pretty much.
Lyall listened patiently, then asked what had driven him to such despair. Erik began recalling his father, Jose. Jose was a Cuban immigrant who had risen from nothing, building his empire through smart investments and living out the American dream, becoming nearly as influential as Hollywood moguls. He had even been running for office, with grand ambitions for his sons to become future presidents, and thus imposed strict discipline on them. At this point, Erik began to choke up, finally admitting that he had shot his father. Lyall, seeing his emotional breakdown, led him back inside for a deeper conversation. Then, Lyall encouraged Erik to tell the full truth so that he could free himself from the psychological burden. After making Lyall promise not to record anything, Erik sank into his memories. The entire plan, he revealed, had begun after watching a film called Billionaire Boys Club. The movie told the story of privileged children murdering their wealthy parents. Because the family in the film resembled his own so closely, Erik developed a terrifying idea. He invited his brother Lyall to watch it together. The two immediately found common ground and began plotting their revenge. They decided to strike on a weekend when the housemaid wouldn't be home. Lyall couldn't comprehend why simply watching a movie could lead the brothers to commit such a monstrous act. Erik then recalled the painful moments caused by his father. During a tennis match, after Erik made a mistake, his father stormed down from the stands, scolded him in front of everyone, and angrily threw away his racket. Whenever his grades were poor, his father would smash plates at the dinner table in rage. Erik was told to be perfect, and if he failed, he would face unbearable pressure. That pressure eventually drove him to extremes. Still, Lyall couldn't understand why their innocent mother had to die as well, but Erik insisted that she wasn't innocent at all. She deeply loved her husband, and even after discovering his affair, she chose to endure it, numbing herself with alcohol and substances, often showing signs of suicidal thoughts. To Erik, killing her felt like granting her release from pain. The family conflict only grew worse. Lyall had been expelled from college for plagiarism, and when his father found out, he exploded in fury. Unable to take it anymore, Lyall talked back. Their mother joined in, forbidding him from dating a woman of lower status and ordering him to break up immediately. In a sudden fit of rage, she ripped off Lyall's toupee, destroying his last shred of dignity. That was when Erik learned for the first time that his older brother had already gone bald at a young age. He went to Lyall's room to ask why, confused about how his admired brother had lost his hair so early. It turned out that years of stress and his father's constant oppression had caused it. Worried about the family's public image, their father even had magnets implanted in Lyall's scalp so that the wig would stay in place. After learning the truth, Erik fully sided with his brother. From the moment they conceived the idea to the actual killing, only 1 week had passed. After buying guns with fake IDs, the brothers began to execute their plan. Before taking action, Lyall deliberately arranged to have dinner with his friends in order to create an alibi. Then, the two brothers drove back home. They encouraged each other.
I love you, Erik. love you.
Walked into the house and opened fire on their parents, who were sitting peacefully watching television. After finishing the murder, the brothers picked up all the shell casings, cleaned themselves up, and left for their dinner appointment. On the way, they buried the weapons. They then went to buy movie tickets, but since they were more than 15 minutes late, they couldn't get tickets for the showtime they wanted, so they reluctantly went to the restaurant where their friends had been waiting. But when they arrived, their friends had already left. To make it look as if they had been there for hours, the brothers chatted loudly with the waiter, emphasizing that they came here every day and usually stayed for 4 hours. When they finally returned home, they called the police. When officers arrived, the brothers put on a stunning performance worthy of an award. They cried uncontrollably and collapsed on the floor, appearing deeply heartbroken by their parents' deaths. When the police questioned them, Lyall immediately tried to steer the investigation toward a gang attack. To preserve the crime scene, the detectives decided to take the two grieving sons to the station for statements. After getting into the police car, they quietly discussed who should give their statement first. To prevent Erik from slipping up, Lyall told him to take the lead. Facing a seasoned detective whose eyes seemed to see right through him, Erik didn't even dare to make eye contact. He described what the scene looked like and how he reacted upon finding the bodies. Meanwhile, investigators at the house checked the victim's liver temperature and estimated the time of death to be around 10 p.m. The brothers had called the police nearly 2 hours later, giving the killer plenty of time to flee. Since Lyall had already picked up all the shell casings, the police couldn't even determine the order of the shots. However, they found the crime unusually sloppy for a professional gang hit, as organized criminals rarely used shotguns that were so easy to trace. After the questioning, Erik hugged Lyall tightly, trying to draw strength from his brother. When it was Lyall's turn, he appeared calmer than Erik, but the slight tremble of his little finger betrayed his fear. He kept making up stories, trying to blame everything on the mob. He claimed that if there was no sign of burglary, it must have been revenge, since their father had made many enemies in business and often dealt with shady people. Once the questioning ended, the detectives arranged for them to be driven back home. But soon investigators at the scene made a new discovery. The brothers had insisted that the smell of gunpowder was still thick in the air, yet one of the windows had been shattered. If the murder had occurred 2 hours earlier, the air circulation would have cleared any trace of smoke. Just after the brothers arrived home, they suddenly noticed that the car which had once carried their shotgun was now surrounded by police officers taking photos. Afraid the bag might give them away, they decided to pretend they needed to get their tennis rackets and tried to open the trunk. Suddenly, an officer called them back into the house to confirm whether anything was missing. While Erik answered questions inside, Lyall kept his eyes on the car outside. When he saw the officers relax their guard, he asked to use the bathroom and slipped out. He casually walked to the car, retrieved the shotgun shell packaging, and stuffed it into the tennis bag. As he slung the bag over his shoulder, he noticed the receipt for the tennis racket still sitting in the car. He quickly grabbed it, crumpled it into a ball, and shoved it into his pocket before finally letting out a sigh of relief. Then, Lyall walked back into the house as if nothing had happened. At the memorial service, their lawyer, Peter, brought up the issue of inheritance. Although their father, Jose's will had not yet been made public, it was almost certain that the brothers would inherit the estate in some form. But Peter's words triggered deep fear in both of them. That was because Jose had always been extremely stingy with their allowance, and in the past, they had even broken into other wealthy homes just to fund their own lifestyle. When Jose found out, he flew into a rage and nearly kicked them out of the house. As punishment, he had promised that neither of his sons would ever inherit a single penny. They would have to earn their own fortune. So now, the brothers were no longer sure whether their father had changed the will or not. Around that time, the investigation took a new turn. On the night of the murders, a white hatchback had been seen parked in front of the brothers' house, identical to a car spotted outside another murder scene, where a victim had been shot 9 times in a similar fashion. Hearing this, the brothers finally felt relieved. Believing they were in the clear, they began to spend recklessly, afraid they might lose their chance to inherit the fortune. They moved into a luxury 5-star hotel, hired personal assistants, and even used limousines for their daily outings. Their dining habits became outrageously extravagant. Erik tried to warn Lyall to control his spending, but Lyall grabbed him by the neck and shouted that they would never have to live a frugal life again. To prevent their father from changing the will, the brothers decided that they had to destroy it before it could be made public. Encouraged by his brother, Erik began to long for this new, luxurious life. Soon, the two brothers started an insane shopping spree. They hired top-level trainers for daily fitness and tennis lessons. Then they threw wild parties at home, inviting friends and beautiful women to join. Meanwhile, the investigation into the murders had made no progress, and the police were under enormous pressure. The area they managed was home to ultra-rich residents, all terrified for their safety. The wealthy no longer trusted the police to protect them, so they bought guns and hired professional bodyguards. The media swarmed the police department, criticizing them mercilessly, and reporters surrounded the building day and night. The officers working this case were being ridiculed as the most incompetent in the country. Seeing the brothers' reckless spending, Peter, their lawyer, began to worry. Since the will still hadn't been found, he was concerned about who would pay for their extravagant lifestyle. But the brothers put on another flawless act, pretending to be heartbroken sons, still grieving their parents' deaths. Peter felt too sorry for them to scold them further. After that, the brothers began searching the house for the missing will. Lyall hired someone to try to open their father's safe. Erik asked a friend for help, but because the law required the presence of the estate's designated executor, he had no choice but to guard the safe through the night. When his uncle Brian finally arrived, the friend agreed to help open it. However, as the safe was being opened, Lyall stepped in front of his uncle, insisting on checking the contents first, but Brian refused. Lyall then broke down in tears, accusing their father of having an affair, and begged to see what was inside. Reluctantly, Brian gave in. Lyall opened the safe nervously, then told his uncle that there was no will inside. After that, the brothers stopped caring about finding it, but the housemaid later discovered Jose's will hidden in a closet. It stated that the inheritance would go to his two sons. The family lawyer soon made the will public.
I devise and bequeath to my wife, Mary Louise Menendez, and in the event of her death, all of my assets shall be split evenly between my sons, Joseph Lyle Menendez and Erik Galen Menendez.
The brothers finally felt a huge weight lifted off their shoulders. They then began spending even more wildly. 2 months later, Erik started to break down, so he went to see the psychologist Lyall to confess. He fell into deep sorrow, saying that ever since the murders, he hadn't been able to sleep, and only in dreams where he shot himself did he feel any relief. He sobbed uncontrollably in front of Lyall, like a child. Seeing this, Lyall suggested bringing Lyall in, believing it might help Erik recover. With Erik's consent, Lyall immediately called Lyall to come over. Before their meeting, Lyall secretly contacted his lover, Judalon, asking her to come as a witness, just in case the two killers turned violent. When Lyall arrived, Judalon was already there. He greeted her briefly, then stormed into the office, yelling at Erik. He accused his brother of making up lies in front of the psychologist. Lyall said that if Erik felt troubled, he should have come to him instead of talking to a stranger. When Lyall promised that everything said in the room would remain confidential, Lyall finally calmed down. Then Lyall began guiding the brothers to tell the truth. He said that if a witness ever exposed their crime, he would testify that the brothers had acted out of fear of their father's controlling behavior. After all, there are different types of homicide: planned, accidental, and those driven by psychological trauma. If it was a premeditated act caused by long-term abuse, the punishment might be less severe. Lyall explained that he needed the truth to understand whether the brothers showed signs of antisocial personality. Hearing this, Lyall grabbed Erik and walked out, having no intention of confessing. Once in the car, Lyall expressed a desire to kill Lyall, but since others were around, he didn't act immediately. He planned to get rid of Lyall, but Erik couldn't bring himself to do it. To appease his brother, Lyall finally promised to abandon the idea of killing Lyall. Meanwhile, Lyall, fearing for his safety, locked all evidence of their confessions in his safe. He then handed the key to Judalon, instructing her to give it to his lawyer if anything ever happened to him. Because of patient confidentiality laws, Lyall couldn't immediately report them to the authorities. Still, he began upgrading his home security system out of fear. He promised Judalon that once the house was finished, he would divorce his wife and bring her home, which finally put her at ease. At the same time, the police, under heavy pressure, continued to focus on the theory of a gang invasion. But every hypothesis they proposed eventually fell apart under closer scrutiny. Suddenly, Erik's friend Craig called the police station and provided a brand new lead. Erik had once confessed to Craig that he and his brother had personally killed their parents. They had even written a script inspired by the movie Billionaire Boys Club, and the scenes were almost identical to how Erik's parents were murdered. The police immediately launched a deeper investigation. Accompanied by Lyall, Erik returned to see the psychologist once again. Under his brother's guidance, Erik claimed that the shooting was only a fantasy. Oziel quickly interrupted their lies. He told them that he had placed the therapy records in a safe, and if anything happened to him, the evidence of their crime would be made public. Lyall became furious on the spot. Oziel calmly reassured him, promising that as long as his life wasn't in danger, those records would remain protected under doctor-patient confidentiality. At the request of the police, Craig wore a hidden recorder and invited Erik out for dinner. During their conversation, Craig gradually steered the topic from script writing to the murder of Erik's parents. He desperately wanted Erik to admit the truth, but his eagerness made Erik suspicious. Erik firmly denied everything and questioned Craig until he was left speechless. With that, the police lost their best lead. Meanwhile, Judalon, pretending to be a guest, had moved into Oziel's house and began scheming. She started manipulating Oziel's daughter, hoping to replace his wife. When Oziel discovered her manipulative behavior, he was furious and kicked her out of the house. Enraged, Judalon decided to take revenge. She went straight to the police station and spoke with Detective Zoller about the Menendez case. By the time Oziel returned home, the police were already there with a warrant, confiscating his safe and the incriminating tapes inside. The recordings of the brothers' confession were now out in the open. The cold and chilling words of the Menendez brothers made even the officers around turn pale. Just as Lyall was about to go out with his friends, the police arrived and arrested him. Meanwhile, Erik was in Israel participating in a tennis tournament when he received the shocking news. Panicking, he reached out to friends for help, but his friend, at a loss for what to do, simply advised him to run. Lyall was locked up in solitary confinement, a place far worse than anything he had ever imagined. In the end, Erik decided to return to the United States so he could face the consequences alongside his brother. The police arrested him the moment he landed at the airport. In prison, the brothers were placed in separate cells with only one wall between them. They ate together, but the food was hard to swallow, so they could only drink milk to fill their stomachs. To keep the milk cold, he placed the small milk cartons in the toilet bowl. Lyall, on the other hand, was often bullied in the showers because of his baldness. He tried asking the guards for hair gel to keep up his appearance, but they ignored him completely. The brothers repeatedly tried to seek help from the outside world, but most people rejected them with disgust. They often begged other inmates for spare coins just to make phone calls. Eventually, they met attorney Shapiro. During their discussions, the brothers even asked for tanning lotion and hair gel. They were worried that the media coverage of their trial would ruin their image, but Shapiro's words quickly brought them back to reality. Hearing him out, Erik suddenly decided it was time to tell the truth about what had really happened before the murders. Lyall disagreed, pulling Erik aside and warning him never to bring it up again. At that point, even Shapiro began to lose faith in them, believing the brothers were beyond redemption. The family elders soon dismissed him from the case. When guards later found a written escape plan in Lyall's cell, the brothers were immediately separated. Lyall was transferred to another prison, leaving Erik alone and helpless. He began to rely on the small acts of kindness from certain inmates. At that moment, Erik was fortunate enough to meet Leslie, a woman known as the embodiment of loopholes in the legal system. She often represented serious offenders, especially young men. Leslie had previously defended a boy who had killed his abusive father and firmly believed he had acted in self-defense.
And you could do that for Lyle and Erik.
To be clear, I'd only be defending Erik. Lyall still needs to retain his own separate counsel, but based on the documents I've read so far, these boys do not deserve to spend the rest of their lives in prison, let alone face the death penalty. Now, I can't guarantee you an outcome, but I promise you, I will put up one hell of a fight.
After being contacted by the brothers' uncle, Leslie agreed to take on Erik's case. Seeing how the brothers had spent their inheritance so recklessly after the murders, Leslie believed it was a psychological response to trauma rather than greed. She was determined to uncover the emotional truth behind their actions. After convincing Erik, she arranged for a new psychologist to help him open up. Once trust was rebuilt, Erik finally confessed the dark secret he had been carrying for years. He revealed that, as a child, he had been assaulted by his own brother, Lyall. Even more horrifying, Lyall himself had been abused by their father, Jose. Erik vividly remembered the day it began. It was the same day his father stopped targeting Lyall and turned to him instead. Hearing this, Leslie was heartbroken by his pain and trauma. This devastating truth strengthened her resolve to fight for Erik's defense. This was a father whose career was a success story, a man who demanded his sons become the best in every field. If his children failed to rank first in an exam, what followed was always a hard slap across the face. He even went as far as writing essays for his son to cheat, just so he could get into the best schools. Even the girls his sons dated had to pass his approval. If a girl came from an ordinary family, he and his wife believed she might bring problems. So when such girls visited, the couple refused to open the door and drove them away immediately. One time, Lyall read aloud an essay written by his father in front of the whole family. His mother praised him without hesitation, while his father took the opportunity to give him what he called a life lesson.
Lie, steal, cheat, but win.
Deeply influenced by Jose, Lyall later cheated on a psychology project just to get a perfect grade. When the teacher discovered the truth, the school decided to expel him. When Jose arrived at the school, he immediately denied the whole incident. Claiming he had donated a large amount of money to the school, he pressured the principal to withdraw the punishment. In the end, the principal compromised and reduced the penalty to a 1-year suspension. To cover up the scandal, Jose made Lyall work under him for a year. At that time, Jose had just secured a high-paying position, so he moved the entire family to California. But under his father's shadow, Lyall's pressure to compete only grew heavier. When Jose noticed Lyall's early signs of balding, he dragged him to a wig shop to get a custom-made piece. Any hint of rebellion in Lyall's heart was crushed by his father's domineering attitude. Although the Menendez family was wealthy, Jose was extremely stingy with his children. Because they were short on money, the brothers actually broke into a neighbor's house to steal. But since it was their first time committing theft and they had no experience, the police quickly helped the neighbor recover the stolen items. Their behavior brought great shame to Jose. He quickly launched damage control, persuading the neighbors to drop the charges. That was the kind of father Lyall described. Leslie couldn't understand why Lyall never dared to speak openly about his father's abuse. Determined to uncover the truth, she asked him directly about what had happened. Realizing there was no point in hiding anymore, Lyall began recounting the abuse he had endured. He remembered it clearly. It started when he was 6 years old, right after a tennis match, when his father used massage as an excuse to cross the line. At the time, Lyall didn't understand what his father's behavior truly meant. His mother seemed unaware of everything, or perhaps she chose to turn a blind eye and became a silent accomplice. At the age of 7, under his father's orders, Lyall was made to watch adult films. As he grew older, his father's acts became more varied and invasive, until the abuse became complete. Whenever Lyall tried to resist out of pain, the punishment only became more cruel. Over time, Lyall's mind became twisted, and he began turning his anger toward his innocent younger brother, Erik. One day, the abuse from their father toward Lyall suddenly stopped. Much later, Lyall realized the horrifying reason. Jose had turned his attention to Erik. When Lyall learned this from his brother, he was overwhelmed with guilt and pain. As an adult, he finally found the courage to confront his father and demand that he stop. Jose outwardly agreed without hesitation, but Lyall knew deep down that he was secretly planning to eliminate both of them. After her talk with Lyall, Leslie soon found herself battling sensationalized media reports. Journalists exaggerated every detail of the Menendez brothers' crime, stirring up a public storm that severely damaged their image. The chaos left Leslie exhausted and frustrated, but the brothers' pitiful situation deeply moved Leslie, so she decided to dig deeper into the truth. She sought out Lyall's friend, Donovan. Donovan was willing to talk but refused to testify in court for personal reasons. He recalled how Lyall often described his father's authoritarian nature. To him, Jose was even more frightening than his own father. Through Donovan, Leslie uncovered something Lyall had never mentioned before. After discovering his father's extramarital affair, Lyall had once expressed a desire to kill him. Later, while drinking with Donovan, he even talked about entrusting Erik and their mother to his friend's care if something happened. During one of their honest conversations, Lyall suddenly asked Donovan if he had ever kept any secrets from him. Afraid that lying would end their friendship, Donovan admitted that he himself had once been assaulted. Hearing that, Lyall didn't hesitate to share his own truth, that both he and Erik had suffered the same fate, and their abuser was their father. That conversation took place 4 months before the murders. Lyall had a persistent feeling that his father would soon make a move against him. One night, Jose confronted Erik, accusing him of revealing family secrets to Lyall. Panicked, Erik ran downstairs only to be stopped by their mother. She admitted that she had known everything all along. She said that in order to keep the family together, she had chosen to remain silent, even tolerating her husband's affairs. At that moment, Erik finally understood. His mother's confession meant that she, too, was ready to take action. Their mother was a firearm enthusiast, someone who loved buying hunting rifles to shoot birds. Once, when she took Erik to a gun store, she openly admitted that she wanted to buy a gun to kill someone. Erik initially thought his mother wanted to kill his father's mistress, but he accidentally discovered she had bought a gun that could fit in her bag. From that day on, the brothers began to stay alert. Soon after, The family planned a fishing trip, but their mother suddenly told the brothers it would be delayed until the afternoon. The sudden change of schedule made both of them uneasy. When they finally set out, they noticed the glint of a metal tube inside their mother's bag. Kitty realized her sons were staring at the bag, so she nervously pulled it close to her chest. During the boat ride, the brothers kept watching her every move, full of suspicion. It wasn't until the trip ended that they discovered the bag only contained lipstick. Although it was a false alarm, the brothers made up their minds. They would never again give their parents the chance to hurt them. They started practicing their shooting skills, preparing themselves for the day they might have to strike back. Leslie learned from Erik that Jose often hit and scolded him, but only spoke words of affection when he was violating him. As a child who had long been ignored, Erik mistook this twisted act for love. He never realized that what he felt was distorted affection. Because of his gentle personality, his parents often mocked him as weak and unmanly. To toughen him up, they even locked him inside a closet, but it only made him more timid. When Erik was 6 years old, one of those so-called massages from his father turned into something far darker, and for the first time, he thought he was being loved. To Leslie, Erik was the true victim. Although Lyall had suffered as well, he had passed his pain on to his innocent younger brother. Leslie felt deep sympathy for Erik and often tried to comfort him in any way she could. She even thought that Erik's father had brought his own end upon himself, and that their mother, who knew everything, was equally guilty. Erik wanted to defend his mother's innocence, but the more he explained, the more Leslie believed Kitty shared the blame. After learning what Jose had done to Erik, Kitty began seeing her own son as a rival rather than a victim. She would even examine Erik's body to make sure he hadn't caught any illness. Leslie was appalled, and when she pressed Erik further, he admitted that growing up in such a twisted household had left him confused about his own identity. He said that he had once dated boys his age. After Kitty found out, she began inspecting his body regularly, starting when he was just 16. In such an environment, Erik no longer knew who he truly was. But were Erik's parents really as cruel as he described? Jose was a Cuban immigrant who fell in love with an American woman named Kitty in college. Despite their family's strong opposition, they insisted on being together. After marriage, Jose promised Kitty that he would give her the best life possible. By middle age, Kitty was surrounded by wealth, yet her broken home left her emotionally shattered. She told her therapist that she hated her two sons. In her eyes, the boys were like parasites feeding on their parents' bones, slowly consuming her from the inside out. She believed that one day they would completely devour her. Her elder son, Lyall, was lazy and refused to earn money on his own, throwing tantrums whenever he didn't get pocket money. Her younger son, Erik, failed at everything and often lost his temper on the tennis court. Jose, unable to bear the chaos at home, sought comfort in his mistress. Kitty believed it was her sons and the mistress who had stolen her husband's love. Desperate to win back his attention, she underwent cosmetic surgery to tighten her face. Although the results were impressive, her efforts were meaningless to a man who no longer cared. Jose ignored the youthful face she had fought to regain and mocked her for gaining weight. Kitty's confidence crumbled instantly, but soon Jose appeased her by gifting her a luxury car. Their two sons, however, each received only a book. Jose explained that the book had inspired him to rise from a dishwasher to a millionaire, calling it the key to his success. He wanted his sons to absorb its wisdom, even crossing out what he considered nonsense, believing it would help them grow stronger. Yet, to his disappointment, not long after, his sons were caught stealing and taken to the police station. By then, Jose was already a powerful businessman, and the news left him in tears over what he saw as his failure as a father. Determined to provide his children with a better environment, he decided to move the family again. To keep them from going astray, Jose even hired a psychologist to treat both boys. But deep down, he could never understand why he had raised two sons who seemed completely lost. Jose once said that he never wanted to lose his temper with his children, but when his two sons broke into someone else's home to steal, he was overwhelmed with guilt and shame. For the first time, Jose began to question his life, and he came up with what he thought was a perfect solution. He decided to divorce his wife and leave everything behind. Hearing this, Kitty's eyes filled with tears. Neglected by her husband and estranged from her sons, she had already developed severe psychological issues. If Jose truly went through with the divorce at that point, it would have completely destroyed her. So, he reluctantly gave up the idea. To relieve his frustration, Jose hired a male companion during a business trip. Meanwhile, the relationship between the Menendez brothers and their mother grew increasingly strained. One evening during dinner, after she sprinkled cinnamon on their food, the brothers accused her of poisoning them. Furious and humiliated, Kitty suffered a seizure right at the table, collapsing to the floor as her sons stood there coldly, watching without offering help. Even when she finally got back up, Neither of them moved. The incident left Kitty emotionally shattered. When Jose returned from his trip, he told her he had ended his affair and promised to rebuild their family. For the first time in a long while, Kitty saw a glimmer of hope. Jose quickly began taking action to repair their image. Early one morning, he woke his sons and brought them to the neighbors whose home they had robbed, forcing them to apologize in person. After securing their forgiveness, he decided the brothers should perform community service, picking up trash to atone for what they had done. He encouraged them to rely on themselves from now on, but Jose never truly let go of control. He had already set his sights on running for office in Florida and appointed his assistant as his right-hand man. He jokingly compared himself to Kennedy and even began planning political futures for both of his sons. But deep down, he knew they weren't dependable, so he put his faith only in himself. Around that time, Jose learned that Lyall had been caught cheating in school. Enraged, he took his son to the family cemetery and showed him the graves of other men sharing their last name, demanding to know if Lyall thought he was worthy of it. Lyall pushed back, asking why his father was always so harsh. Jose dismissed the question. In his mind, everything he did was for his son's own good. After all, his own father had treated him the same way. Jose believed that his punishment hadn't been strict enough, which was why his sons had become so weak. He decided to take a gentler approach with Erik, the younger one. One day, while applying ointment to Erik's foot,
"Well, I remember when you were a baby. The only thing that would make you sleep was rubbing your feet, actually.
It stings a little.
It's supposed to sting. That means it's working, right?"
he sensed his son's resistance, so he dropped the pretense and began asking Erik about his sexual orientation.
"I'm genuinely asking because I don't see you with a single piece of pussy ever."
What are you? This is unbelievable. I don't have to listen to this.
Sit down. I'm giving you a future with me. When I am a senator, you're going to work with me in politics. And for that future, you need a girlfriend. Janice Szymanski.
No, Dad, no.
Already talked to her parents. She's beautiful. She looks like Miss America. Come on.
No. I'm not living here. I'm going to stay in the dorm.
Erik didn't deny it, so Jose angrily dragged him into the house and gave him a harsh lesson. Kitty heard the commotion but chose not to intervene. That night, Jose was counting the protective supplies at home, only to discover that not a single one had been used. That discovery chilled him to the core. It confirmed to him that his son not only preferred men, but was being careless about his safety. Jose immediately told Kitty, worried that Erik might get sick. After hearing this, Kitty began conducting regular health checks on Erik herself. When she confirmed that he was fine, she told Jose he was overreacting, though deep inside she began to suspect there was something more behind his concern. She asked Jose a shocking question. Jose denied it, insisting that all he ever wanted was to raise strong, confident boys. Hearing that, Kitty let down her guard, but the truth was, Jose had been hiding his own trauma. He had been violated by a family member as a child, and even his own mother had suffered similar abuse. It was a wound that had haunted him his entire life. Eventually, Jose decided to draft his will. When he invited the lawyer to their home, Lyall happened to witness it. Not long after, the brothers' extravagant spending began to drive Kitty crazy. They were no longer satisfied with modest cars like their Ford Escort. Even during arguments, Jose would sometimes laugh at their spoiled behavior. He believed he was finally learning to let go and forgive, ready to move past his own pain and start anew. What Jose never expected was that his two sons would take up their guns and walk toward them. As a result, Jose and Kitty, completely unprepared, were shot and killed by their own sons. Lyall's girlfriend, Jamie, came to visit him, and he tried to persuade her to lie in court so he could be released sooner. But Jamie firmly refused and broke up with him on the spot. Lyall then tried to convince his friends and relatives to back him up with the same lie, yet every attempt failed. Still, he didn't seem the least bit worried. Because of his good looks, Lyall had gained a group of admirers who saw him on television. Every day in prison, he received piles of fan letters from infatuated women. More and more people began to judge the case not by facts but by his appearance, insisting that someone like him must have had his reasons. Some even ignored all evidence, claiming that Lyall was completely innocent. When meeting with his defense lawyer, Jill, Lyall continued spinning strange lies. Leslie, who was observing the meeting, felt uncomfortable and interrupted him. Afterward, she discussed her thoughts on the Menendez brothers with Jill. Hearing Jill's opinion, Leslie's expression changed, but she quickly laughed it off and shifted the subject. Both lawyers, perhaps without realizing it, were beginning to sympathize with the brothers they defended. When bored, Lyall would sort through his fan mail, pick out numbers, and call women from the prison phone just to pass the time. Erik, on the other hand, was trapped in waves of emotion, clearly hiding something that still haunted him. As the brothers prepared for trial, Jill and Leslie began coaching them. Following his attorney's instructions, Lyall described the night of the murder, claiming that he and Erik believed their father planned to kill them and tried to escape in the middle of the night, but their father ordered them back to their rooms. Sensing his wife's agitation, Jose had gone back to the bedroom with her. The brothers claimed they thought their parents were getting guns, so they grabbed their own shotguns from the trunk and opened fire out of panic. Leslie immediately realized the story was fake and scolded Lyall for making it up. Then she walked up to Lyall and told him to portray his mother as an accomplice who had helped their abusive father. Lyall didn't hesitate. Drawing on his talent for acting, he teared up within seconds, sobbing uncontrollably. Leslie, moved by his display, encouraged him to perform the same way in court. After all, an emotional jury with no legal background would be far easier to persuade. When Leslie took the stand, she argued that the Menendez brothers had been victims of long-term abuse and that the killings were acts of self-defense. Her statement shifted public opinion, making people more sympathetic toward the brothers and their possible leniency. Soon, several witnesses testified that Jose had been extremely strict with his sons, though none could confirm that either brother had been physically violated. But was Leslie's defense truly motivated by justice? She had once defended a man who had brutally killed his girlfriend, managing to reduce his murder charge to manslaughter. He served only 3 years in prison and was released to live a normal life as a chef, while the victim's life ended forever. The victim's father, Dominic, had never stopped following Leslie's new cases. He often gathered members of the press to discuss how the Menendez brothers had murdered their parents. When the second trial began, Lyall sat at the defense table and admitted to shooting his parents, but claimed it was out of fear. He then gave a heartbreaking testimony, describing years of abuse from his father. People in the courtroom were visibly moved. When he spoke about his mother, Lyall added even more details, accusing her of turning a blind eye to everything his father had done. Then he revealed how his trauma led him to lash out at Erik in his own moments of confusion and pain. Hearing this, Erik broke down in tears beside him. Even Dominic, sitting in the gallery, struggled to keep seeing the brothers purely as monsters. But one person remained unmoved, Pam, the prosecutor, who was convinced that every word they said was a lie. Late at night, Lyall called his admirer, Norma, boasting proudly about everything he had accomplished and even suggesting that his story should be made into a movie, unaware that Norma was secretly recording the entire conversation. After this incident, Dominic proactively approached Leslie to reconcile. Meanwhile, after being abandoned by Oziel, Judilon flew into a rage and exposed Oziel's scandal in court, completely destroying his reputation. By then, Oziel had already lost his professional license, and any therapy sessions he continued to offer were technically illegal. As a result, the brothers' original confession, obtained through him, began to lose credibility. The situation was slowly turning in the Menendez brothers' favor. Next came Erik's turn at the defense table, but he seemed troubled and distracted. As he began to speak, his distance from the microphone caused his words to be interrupted several times, making him increasingly nervous. Following the plan, he began tearfully describing the abuse he claimed to have suffered from his father. Suddenly, the prosecutor, Pam, interrupted and questioned the truth of his story. She cleverly set a trap with a single question.
And did you truly go to the Santa Monica Big Five on the morning of August 18th to buy handguns?
Yes, without a doubt I did.
And you and Lyall looked in the case, and then you were told you couldn't leave the store with the handguns because there was a 15-day wait. Is that right?
Yes.
Now, Mr. Menendez, did you know that Big Five stopped carrying handguns in 1986? Mr. Menendez, you have lied in the past, but you're not lying now?
No.
Asking about the gun Erik mentioned in his testimony. However, the store he named had stopped selling handguns back in 1986, proving that his statement was false. Erik's disastrous testimony infuriated Lyall, who harshly scolded his younger brother afterward. But Erik snapped back, saying that Lyall was the one who started everything. Lyall was stunned, insisting that it was Erik who first came up with the idea. He reminded him that Erik had been obsessed with Billionaire Boys Club and had even written a script about killing their parents. Lyall argued that if he wanted to, he could have revealed in court that Erik had gone to him for help after their parents discovered his relationship with another man.
Says the guy who blew our dad's head off and shot our mom in the face.
Erik, let's not forget what they did to us, okay?
Once again, Lyall shifted the blame onto Erik. After a long wait, the brothers returned to court for another round of hearings. During that time, Leslie had given birth to a child, but she still handled the defense with full focus and passion. She argued that the Menendez brothers were guilty only of excessive self-defense. From numerous witness statements, she extracted bits of testimony suggesting that the brothers had suffered mistreatment since childhood. Her emotional and powerful arguments deeply moved several jurors. The brothers, encouraged by this reaction, became increasingly confident that they would soon be free. Thanks to Leslie's support, Erik relaxed and began focusing on writing novels. He even started a romantic relationship while still in prison. Meanwhile, the city was struck by frequent earthquakes, and the media frenzy surrounding the case only intensified. When the jury failed to reach a unanimous verdict, the court declared a mistrial. Excited, the brothers immediately asked their lawyers if that meant they were free. But 6 months later, the case was retried. This time, many of the female jurors saw Erik as a pitiful young man, some even calling the prison to comfort him. Still, Erik grew increasingly discouraged as he sensed public opinion shifting against them. Recently, he had begun receiving hateful letters from strangers, filled with anger and contempt. Leslie also discovered that many of the male jurors had voted against the brothers not because of the evidence, but because they were prejudiced against her personally. By then, the brothers' inheritance had nearly run out, leaving them unable to pay their legal fees. Lyall's attorney Jill decided to withdraw from the case, but Lyall remained confident, claiming he would soon be able to afford her again. That was when Jill learned that Lyall had been secretly corresponding with Norma, who had written a book based on him. He believed the book would bring in money, but Jill warned him about the risk. If that so-called admirer released the tapes, the prosecution would use them in cross-examination and destroy his credibility. As a result, Lyall lost the right to testify in the second trial. Now, everything depended on Erik. At that moment, Erik felt completely helpless. Now, the once wealthy Menendez brothers had become bankrupt, and people began to kick them while they were down. To avoid another deadlock in court, the judge ruled that Erik could no longer use excessive self-defense as his argument. Leslie tried everything to defend him, even suggesting that Erik abandon Lyall and save himself, since only Lyall had actually pulled the trigger. But that idea struck a nerve with Erik.
Do you know how much people hate you? No, do you know, though? Like, you didn't do a good job.
Feeling hopeless about life, he refused any further help from Leslie. Soon after, Erik gained a new prison neighbor, Simpson. Once a famous football star, Simpson had become the prime suspect in a murder case involving his ex-wife. While the whole world expected him to be found guilty, the court declared him not guilty. In just 1 week, Simpson had walked free, and that gave the Menendez brothers renewed hope. To Lyall, it was unbelievable that a man accused of such a serious crime had said almost nothing during the trial. Yet his defense team still managed to set him free.
Garcetti cares about one thing only, and that is his re-election. That is why they are trying to gut our case, because they need a win, and they need it now.
Even so, Lyall refused to keep Leslie as his court-appointed attorney. He wanted to rehire his private lawyer instead. He explained that he had gathered some donations from public sympathy campaigns and now had money to pay for it. Leslie remembered his manipulative stunt, how he had appealed to the public's emotions to collect funds for himself. What frustrated her even more was learning that Lyall had spent $2,500 of those donations on a new custom-made wig. But Lyall didn't care. He even tried to use his past trauma as a way to stir public compassion, coming up with a slogan to promote himself.
If you've been abused, you cannot be accused.
Erik, who had been sitting silently beside him, suddenly burst into laughter. He realized that the brother he had always admired was, in fact, a fool. When Lyall tried to argue back, he noticed that Erik was holding a book, one published by his admirer, Norma. Worse yet, Norma had released every recording of their private phone calls to the public. Only then did Lyall realize how badly things had spun out of control. He tried to deny responsibility, claiming he had no idea she was recording. Erik was furious. He believed that they had been so close to freedom. But Lyall's arrogance and those recordings had ruined everything. The jury's female members had still been sympathetic toward them, and they only needed to convince one more person to win their release. But Lyall's behavior had now drained all remaining sympathy. Public opinion began turning against them. After a heated argument, Erik finally lost control and attacked his brother for the first time. Leslie had to call the guards to break them apart. When the Menendez brothers returned to court, a new prosecutor, Khan, took control of the case. Using Lyall's letters and recordings, he argued that the brothers had fabricated their stories to gain pity. Leslie tried to object but was cut off by the judge. Then Khan brought in a car salesman to testify about the car Jose had bought for Lyall. Jose had spent $23,000 on an Alfa Romeo sports car for his son, but Lyall had called it a piece of junk and cursed his father for it. The salesman admitted he couldn't help feeling sorry for Jose. Next, Erik's friend Craig took the stand. He confirmed that he and Erik had once written a script together about a boy who kills his wealthy parents to inherit their fortune. He also revealed what Erik had told him after the murders, that he shot his parents while they were asleep using a hunting shotgun from their car. Craig's testimony destroyed the brothers' defense, turning their case from self-defense to cold-blooded murder. He added that the movie Billionaire Boys Club was practically a mirror image of what the brothers had done. Then, Lyall's cousin, who had received letters from him, was called to testify. He admitted that Lyall had asked him to lie in court and claim that Jose had abused them. Finally, it was Erik's turn to defend himself, but Con gave him no chance to breathe. He immediately asked if Erik had planned to kill his parents with a crossbow. Flustered, Erik accidentally revealed that he had often visited gun shops. Con then confronted him with his earlier confession about buying shotgun shells, pressing him with more damning questions. In the end, Con declared that the Menendez brothers hated their parents and had brutally murdered them. He emphasized that this was not self-defense, it was murder. Desperate, Erik brought up the old claim of abuse again. He said his father had forbidden him from ever speaking about it and threatened punishment if he did. Erik claimed that after telling Lyall, he feared their father would kill him. But this only confirmed for the prosecution that Erik had planned the murders long before. Then came testimonies from employees and service workers. They all said they had seen the brothers shouting at their parents in public. It seemed clear that the parents feared their sons, not the other way around. Several witnesses even testified that Jose and Kitty genuinely cared for their children, and that the Menendez home was nothing like the house of horror the brothers had described. Then Con presented the only medical record that supposedly proved Erik had been abused. The report mentioned a small bruise on his throat, but Con argued that such marks were common in children. He even gave an example, saying that Erik might have simply choked on a popsicle that slipped and hit his throat. Leslie tried to stand and request a mistrial, but the judge immediately overruled her. Con then held up a book titled Children Who Kill to expose Leslie's courtroom tactics. He reminded everyone that she had once helped a murderer escape conviction by claiming the defendant was abused, and now she was using the same trick again. Leslie was speechless. Con completely controlled the courtroom as he accused the Menendez brothers of killing their parents for money. After all, they were lazy and had no intention of ever earning their own living. Jose had been deeply disappointed in his sons and planned to remove them from his will. So, the brothers decided to act first. They coldly eliminated their parents to secure themselves as sole heirs. After the funeral, desperate to find the will, they drove off with the family safe to a friend's place to have it opened. Because they had to wait overnight, Erik even slept beside the safe, clutching it in his arms, showing how obsessed they were with money. When the safe was finally opened, Lyall insisted on checking it alone. Con theorized that during that time, Lyall might have hidden a new version of the will. Before resolving the inheritance issue, the brothers had already spent money like water. They burned through $700,000 in a short period, apparently afraid their father might change the beneficiaries. All these actions, Con argued, proved that the Menendez brothers were guilty of premeditated murder. Now, the jury's task was no longer to decide whether they were guilty, but whether to sentence them to life in prison or to death. By this point, the media had lost much of its interest in the case. But after the Simpson trial had shaken public trust in the justice system, people were eager to see a clear example of accountability. So, under public pressure, the Menendez brothers were found guilty of first-degree murder. The case moved into the sentencing phase.
Under California law, the jury is only allowed to consider two sentencing options: life without parole or death.
The jury felt enormous pressure. Some female jurors still pitied the brothers' tragic upbringing, but others believed justice demanded their deaths. One juror even suffered a heart attack in the middle of deliberation. A male alternate juror gently urged the others to show mercy and spare their lives. In the end, the brothers were sentenced to life imprisonment without the possibility of parole. Prosecutor Con was satisfied with the outcome, knowing the Menendez brothers would never walk free again. Leslie could only accept the result in silence. When she learned that the brothers would be sent to separate prisons, she tried to intervene but failed. Eventually, they were transported to different facilities. Before leaving, they exchanged one last look through the bars of the prison van, realizing they were about to be apart forever. Then the story flashed back to the day before the murders. Jose had promised his wife during that boat trip that he would focus on rebuilding their family. They even discussed his plan to run for office and pave the way for their son's future. But at that same moment, their sons were secretly plotting how to end their parents' lives. When the sentencing ended, the Menendez case finally came to a close. Both brothers remain in prison, serving life sentences without parole. To this day, they continue to stand by their original story. Not long ago, a spokesperson for the Southern California prison confirmed that the Menendez brothers, who killed their parents in 1989, were reunited for the first time in over 20 years. The two embraced tightly and wept uncontrollably.